Today's topic for the web workshop is going to be procrastination, particularly strategies to managing your time and any of those pesky avoidance related behaviors that we do. As a reminder, this is through the Counseling and Psychological Services Office, CAPS, which is located at the IU Health Center, 4th floor, and we can be contacted at 812-855-5711, and you're able to access our after-hours crisis line by selecting option 1. The outline for today is we're hoping to really focus on tackling procrastination and learning how to better manage our responsibilities by being able to explore and understand what is actually on your plate, what type of time do you have available, any strategies to combat against procrastination, and then any of those barriers that might get in the way of you actually having success implementing some of the strategies you're going to learn today. So for this presentation, you're going to need at least 45 to 50 minutes available. So this pre-recorded webinar is going to run just like any of our live workshops. And if you're interested in knowing what live workshops are coming up, you can always visit our website and look at the IU Health Center calendar where we include all of our events there. So because it's going to run just like it, there will be lots of different opportunities to challenge yourself to answer journal prompts. I encourage people to pause the video just to make sure you have enough time to answer those questions, and then when you're ready, you can resume it. Therefore, you're going to need something to write with. That might be a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, or if you prefer to type on your computer or on your phone, that's fine too. But I do encourage you to actually take these journal prompts seriously to ensure that you can further develop and think through the available skills, questions, and what might be getting in your way. I often like to start out a lot of these different presentations with just a funny comic, just a little bit of comedic relief before we get started. But I think we've probably all been there at one point and another where we've done basically nothing. Maybe we've binged a TV show, or we've effectively just sat on the couch, or we've cleaned every nook and cranny because we don't want to do what we actually have to do. And then suddenly we get flooded with it at nighttime. Again, I think everybody can relate to this in some capacity or another. What's most important is that we do first develop some sort of insight as to what procrastination is. And it is important to mention that every single person procrastinates. It's a very common part of human behavior. Often we can mistake it as laziness, sometimes depression. A lot of people take it on as a personality trait, but every single person in the world does procrastinate for a different reason and for varying degrees. So it is important that we develop some insight about what we like to procrastinate or don't like to procrastinate, but do anyways. And essentially understanding what gets in the way of the vicious cycle actually ending. So one person might really procrastinate math, another person might procrastinate papers, while that same person who procrastinated math absolutely slays the game writing those papers right on time. So it is important to understand that. For me, too, it's even important to understand what types of household tasks that I procrastinate as well. I've seen this meme out there where it says laundry takes this amount of time to wash it, this amount of time to dry it, and then 5 to 7 business days to put it away. That's typically something that I am often procrastinating putting away. Now, what is important that we understand is, where does it get problematic? What are those consequences? If I'm not putting my laundry away, are there as many consequences there if I don't complete a math assignment? Probably not. However, it is also important to acknowledge what are those subsequent emotional response consequences. So how guilty are you feeling? How ashamed are you feeling? That's where it can really become problematic, and it's important for us to look into and understand further. I like to use this sort of diagram to really understand exactly what procrastination looks like. This is taken from the CCI website, which is an excellent resource website, but I think it does a great job really breaking down what the procrastination cycle looks like. So essentially, up at the top, there's going to be this approach, task, or goal. So what is the thing that is happening? That moves on to activate unhelpful rules and assumptions, and we'll talk about this a little bit further. So is it that you're afraid of failure or somebody's going to disapprove of you? Are you afraid of the unknown? Do you have anxious thoughts that tend to snowball? Is there low self-confidence? Are you tired? What gets activated? That ultimately causes individuals to feel very uncomfortable. So we feel uncomfortable sitting down to fold our laundry or to do our math homework or whatever we're wanting to procrastinate. Because we don't like the feeling of being uncomfortable, we have a tendency to want to run away from it, to avoid it, which leads to the procrastination excuses. And we'll talk about these more, but they're essentially things that we tell ourselves to say, hey, it's okay that I procrastinate this thing. It might be, if I'm too tired, I'm saying, oh, well, I'll be better in the morning. Leads us to usually immediately feeling a sense of relief. So a dopamine rush, because we're happy that we put that off. We get to immediately do something we like instead. And then that can lead to any consequence, either positive or negative. That might be an emotional consequence or an external consequence. And we often continue to do this cycle, as shown on the diagram, up until we actually have to complete the task. Now, this is typically reinforced by positive and negative experiences, and because people have a tendency to forget how difficult something was or how painful it was to procrastinate, how many all-nighters you had to pull, because of the accomplishment that you feel once it was completed. And if you got a great grade, that reinforces, I can continue to do this next time. Now onto our journal questions. So again, please pause the video to record your responses and then press play when you're ready to move on. I want you to think about and write down, what do you personally have a tendency to procrastinate? So what types of assignments, household tasks, this could be other things like budgeting, responding to text messages, calling your parents, any certain classes. What types of thoughts do you have that lessen the guilt you feel from procrastinating? So any excuses you tell yourself to validate procrastination. And then what are some unhelpful rules about procrastination that might be contributing to this cycle you have? Again, when you're ready, hit play and move on. So now it's important that we talk about procrastination strategies. And I know here it says to beat the midterm slump, but this is just important for us to do to beat final slump, any slump that we might be in, and just trying to challenge those procrastination strategies in general. It is also important to mention that these are going to continue to pop up, and sometimes procrastination isn't always a bad thing. Like I said, do I wish that I would put my laundry away sooner? Possibly. But if there's no negative emotional consequence or actual negative external consequence, it's really not the end of the world if I procrastinate that. So we want to be able to recognize that the goal here is not that we're never going to procrastinate, just that we know how to cope with it when it shows up and that we can challenge ourselves to do things differently. So my first tip is learning how to dismiss those procrastination excuses. So what a procrastination excuse is something that you're going to tell yourself about a situation that you're facing that essentially tells you, okay, it'll be better if I put this on. So this helps us alleviate any guilt that we're going to feel. It helps us feel more justified in our decision. It essentially just helps us rationalize the fact that we're going to put this thing off. So again, you might be sitting down to complete your math assignment and you immediately notice, oh, I'm really tired. The excuse is usually, okay, I'm going to be better off doing my homework in the morning after I'm well rested. Or you sit down and you don't have your calculator. Shoot, I don't have everything I need to get started. My roommate's asleep. I can't borrow her calculator, so it leads to the decision to wait starting the assignment until you have everything. Or I have plenty of time. Leads to the decision that it's okay if you postpone starting the assignment. Those are just some examples of procrastination excuses, and there are many, many more that fit in. But ultimately, again, it's what you tell yourself so you feel okay with postponing the task. Now, these unhelpful excuses essentially follow the same principle that if you do the task tomorrow, it's going to be a much better time for you to be productive. You're not going to feel as possibly anxious or uncomfortable from trying to complete the task. But as we know, there is rarely a better time for us to actually do something that we don't want to do. So if you're not interested in doing math that makes you feel really, really anxious because you don't feel like you're very good at it, I don't know if waiting until tomorrow will allow you to wake up and miraculously feel like you're better at that. The truth is, and I encourage everybody to write this down or really plaster it throughout your brain, is that there is no time that is probably more ideal to do something that you simply do not want to do. Now, the caveat is certainly there might be a couple of times that are a bit more convenient and a couple of times that are a bit less convenient, but ultimately, we might not magically feel more productive the next day or magically feel more confident in this thing that we don't enjoy or feel confident in. So instead, my challenge is work to try and complete just a small part of the task, even if you're not motivated, if you don't have everything you need, or if you're tired, just try and do a little bit. By taking action first, not waiting for the feeling, you're usually going to feel more capable of continuing forward, and you're more likely to get the job done. It's like a phrase that I'll often use. We can't think our way into a new way of acting, but we can act our way into a new way of thinking. Certainly that phrase might not work for everything, but in this case, I challenge you, try and do a little bit of something. Usually that will help get the ball rolling. The other importance of this is learning how to challenge your conclusions. So when you notice those procrastination excuses pop up, instead of just answering them and saying, okay, yep, it's time for me to wait until tomorrow because I'm tired, I don't have everything I need, ask yourself questions. And if you answer all of these and realize, yes, it is best that I put the task off, you can put the task off. But you might notice that you're a little narrowed in from your mindset and you're engaging in what we kind of call confirmation bias, and there's not actual evidence that suggests that tomorrow will be a better day. So I encourage you to ask questions such as, what is the actual evidence that suggests it's best that you put this task off? Is it really true that you will be better off in the long run delaying this task? If I don't start this right now, how might I feel? What may happen? How will I actually feel about it tomorrow? Can I not even make a small start on the task? What would it be like for me just to do a little something? Again, if you answer after all of these that no, it's actually not best for you to do it, great, you have your answer. But you might notice that it will actually cause you more stress to try and do it tomorrow. Or that, okay, I might not be able to do everything tonight, but I can do something, and that's going to greatly ease the anxiety the next time I sit down to complete this task. Tip 2, which kind of comes off of this, is just 5 minutes. So it really follows the same discussion as discussed in one of the previous slides, that essentially once you get yourself started, you are likely able to continue and motivation may start sliding into place. So what's really important to know is that the hardest part of any task is starting it. It's hardest to just show up, sit down, open your laptop, open the book. It might be difficult to show up for a workout, respond to a text, look at your bank account statement. And so we're often waiting for the motivation to start. But if you're waiting for motivation to come and hit you in the face, especially for something that you don't want to do or don't feel confident in, you are likely going to be waiting a very long time. So it is important to think about utilizing a strategy to help make the task feel more manageable. So here's how you do it. It's really easy. Just set a timer for 5 minutes. Tell yourself, I only need to work on writing the introduction of this paper, or insert whatever assignment or task you're trying to do, for 5 minutes. This is designed to help it feel more tolerable. So rather than thinking, shoot, I have to sit down for an entire Sunday afternoon and write this, it's, I just have to do something for 5 minutes. We can basically do anything for 5 minutes. Then when the timer goes off, ask yourself, can I do 5 more? If you can, continue to repeat that until you can't continue. Now here's what's important. I've had students do this and then let me know, okay, 5 minutes was way too short. I was getting super annoyed from the alarm. Okay, expand it. Try 10. Still annoyed? Try 15. 15 feels like it's too much, back it down to 12. We want to try and find the sweet spot. And I do encourage you to be flexible because that sweet spot might look different depending upon the task. I prefer writing papers than I did any day to math or science, but there were plenty of papers I still procrastinated. Now, I could probably write for more like 15 or 20, and wanted to like break it down into that amount, but 15 or 20 minutes on something I absolutely don't like feels way too long. So you're going to have to be a little bit flexible with yourself too and figure out what is that sweet spot? What is that just perfect amount of time that makes it feel manageable enough, but not too short where you're getting annoyed at the time, and not too long where you're finding yourself chronically checking your phone. Tip 3 is utilizing a reward system. So we are very reinforcement driven people, which is why procrastination is so easy to do, because it's instant gratification oriented. You are able to experience an immediate rush of dopamine and an immediate sense of relief because you put the task off, and you are able to then experience something that you like better. So if we're going to try and beat it, then we also need to beat it at its own game and find ways to reward ourselves. So procrastination is easy to do. Doing something early is often hard, so it's important that you find ways to motivate and reward yourself by being able to do the hard thing, being able to tolerate that distress. So the more you feel like you can reward yourself for both is a key word, small and big achievements, the less likely you are to feel deprived or like you're missing out. So this could be something with food, this could be accountability with a friend, this could be binging on a certain TV show, listening to a podcast, something in particular. Perhaps you choose to pair your studying with a place that you really like. When I was in graduate school, I would pair it with Panera, and I would be able to get my favorite soup and coffee, so it made the experience much more tolerable. But it is important to make these rewards something that you will actually want to work toward, and be less likely to allow yourself to have it otherwise. So, for example, if you watch Grey's Anatomy all the time, both as a reward and not as a reward, it's going to feel far less motivating than if you reserved watching Grey's Anatomy for times when you were actually able to complete the task and tolerate the discomfort. So I encourage you to start thinking about what a reward system can look like. And again, it's important to reward yourself on the big and the small tasks. For our next set of journal questions, I want you to think about and write down, when you're struggling with procrastination, what do you do to help motivate yourself to get started? What has worked for you in the past? What hasn't worked as well? When you're ready, please feel free to press play and you can move on. So our hope is that we can eventually have our cycle look more like this, as shown as this diagram. Again, this has been taken from the CCI website, and I encourage you to explore their website for additional resources. Our hope is that we're still going to get there. We're still going to approach that thing we don't like that makes us feel anxious or demotivated, still going to activate those same old unhelpful rules and assumptions, but instead, we're going to try and adjust them. So using those questions, what is the actual evidence? I'll be better equipped to do this tomorrow. What if I started a little something, as discussed previously? We want to try and engage in some tolerance strategies for the discomfort. So again, just 5 minutes can come into play. Any other strategies you can do to help tolerate any of that discomfort you feel. We want to try and dismiss those excuses and encourage yourself. This leads us to needing to apply practical strategies to stop procrastination. So again, continuing to question those excuses, utilizing our time, understanding maybe times when we're more motivated, less motivated, even if it's on a continuum of very little motivation to begin with, but we want to apply those practical strategies. And then hopefully it's going to lead to some positive consequences. You get things done. You feel accomplished, satisfied. You're less uncomfortable. You're able to actually sleep that night. This might lead to you rewarding yourself, hopefully. And then those unhelpful rules and assumptions are actually challenged, which typically makes them less powerful in the future. And the hope is that we can continue to do this rather than procrastinate next time. So I know that this is not an exact journal slide, but I do think it's important to answer these questions. So I want you to answer, what types of unhelpful rules and assumptions do you need to adjust? How can you help dismiss those typical procrastination excuses? What procrastination strategies do you intend to use to stop the avoidance patterns? How can you tolerate the discomfort you may experience when doing the dreaded assignment or task? And what reward may motivate you to complete the task? When you're ready, please feel free to hit play and continue. But again, I want you to pause and record your responses. All right, and again, we have another set of journal questions. Again, we're going to pause the video to record the responses and press play when you're ready to continue. Now, I want you to think further. What makes it more difficult for you to manage responsibilities during the academic year? During those weeks when you're feeling super on top of it, what are you doing differently? What procrastination and time management strategies have you tried in the past that work? And what doesn't work? So we're starting to branch into more of the managing responsibilities portion, which is a huge piece if we're trying to tackle procrastination. So take some time, journal, and when you're ready, please press play. All right, so we're going to take on procrastination by really diving into our other strategies. Tip 1 is it's important to understand your schedule. So if we're trying to combat against procrastination, we don't want things like a lack of time to reinforce those excuses and get in our way. And we find that people are typically feeling the worst and most upset when they're surprised by something. So if you are surprised by how all of your assignments are colliding during midterm week, finals week, or any other time of the semester, it might activate the tendency to want to procrastinate more. So we do want to have an understanding of what your semester, monthly, and weekly schedule will look like and how those various responsibilities can impact one another. So it's important that your schedule reflects your goals and your values. So I want you to think, and feel free to pause if you want to record your response, otherwise we'll move on. How does your current schedule reflect your needs and your responsibilities? And how can you use planning as an asset to anticipate difficult weeks ahead? Tip 2 is we need to then get real about our responsibilities. So we often get lost in the shoulds of life and have a difficult time reconciling what actually needs to get done and when. So we need to actually understand what needs your undivided attention right now. So here's how we do it. We're going to sit down and list all of your major tasks and goals for a particular time frame. It might be tomorrow, this week, this month, this semester. List all of them. And then assign priority ranking. So what is truly the most important things to accomplish immediately? What can wait even if it feels a bit anxiety provoking? This helps us reconcile that those tasks we're using to procrastinate with don't actually need to be done. And if we're truly going to try and procrastinate by finishing something else, can it be something else that's important for us to get done? Then ask yourself, can any of these tasks be broken down even further? We want to try and make the big mountain feel a lot more tangible and in bite-sized pieces. Then throw out any of those low priority items. So these are either unnecessary or they're going to get taken care of or they don't need to be considered just yet. So we want to really understand this. Now, you might be sitting here thinking, okay, great, Liv, but I still don't have enough time. What's important is that you understand how much time something will actually take, and we're not budgeting more time for a task than it actually requires. Often we have a tendency to over-exaggerate how much time something's going to take. Something might only take 5 minutes, but we think it's going to take all day. So question it, how long should this actually take? Remember that a few hours of concentrated work when you feel good is worth more than twice that when you're not feeling good or you're distracted or you're preoccupied. So instead of thinking that you need to spend all Sunday at the library, can you challenge yourself to have a few concentrated hours or even just a few concentrated minutes? This is why I really challenge people to engage in the just 5-minute strategy. Now, we do have to allow time for the unexpected. So what could come up? Because if we become too rigid, we can often be thrown off course. This often comes up with people when they're trying to cut things out like candy or sugar or anything else like French fries. They try and not do it, and then they finally get access to it. It comes up when they're at a party or hanging out with friends. That could have them completely thrown off course. So we do want to allow for some flexibility. Now, self-care is important too. And so are breaks. So we want to make sure that that is built in there in some capacity, but that we have enough self-awareness and insight to acknowledge when that might be a procrastination tactic. When are we overtaking breaks? And a final reminder, as you can see on 5, is that the emotion guilt just does not serve you or help you, especially in the case of productivity. You're going to be wasting more time feeling guilty and trying to avoid that feeling of guilt than actually pushing through, trying to feel accomplished, and then tackle the thing to help lessen that guilt overall. Other tips continued. Worst first. So this might work for people where you try and complete the worst task, which then helps other tasks appear easier to come by. If that doesn't work for you, then use momentum. Start with something easier. And then when you start feeling productive, motivated, accomplished, immediately switch to the thing you don't like to do. Set time limits. So if just 5 minutes doesn't seem to work, then maybe say, I'm just going to sit down and write my paper for 30 minutes or an hour. Actually set a timer. When the timer goes off, you have to stop doing the work, even if you feel like you can continue. So this can often help let our bodies know that we're not trying to take advantage of it overall. It's also important to understand what are the prime time and prime places for you to feel motivated. Are you a night owl, a morning person, mid-afternoon? Are you more motivated around people, by yourself, at a coffee shop, in the library, with music, with certain headphones, in certain spaces of your home? We need to understand this and do the very best that we can to make sure that our workspace and our productive times mirror what we're looking for. As well as remember then do. If you've ever just been sitting there and you remember, shoot, I have to do this thing. If you can you accomplish even a small part of it right then and there? We want to follow that motivation when it hits you. If it's not possible, I encourage you write it down on either a piece of paper in a notebook or the notes section of your apps. Reminders can also be really helpful too. I encourage them to be visual and auditory. I much prefer writing by hand. I think that it's a very different processing experience, but if that's not you, that's okay. We also want to visualize. So often when people sit down, what gets in the way is that they feel anxious, like they're not going to get it done or they're not going to be able to do it successfully. They're going to get a bad grade. So using guided imagery can be really helpful to clearly visualize yourself completing the task successfully. So imagine that. Imagine yourself getting it done, tolerating the discomfort, engaging in any strategies, being able to get the grade back, getting a grade you want, and then use that positive momentum to complete the task in real life. Now, if you're still feeling unsettled, if you still can't do it, instead of just stopping, just take a few minutes, close your eyes, focus on your breath, do a grounding activity to help reduce that level of emotional discomfort. And then when you're ready, you can just come back to it. Now, let's say you've tried all of these strategies and you're still feeling like, okay, Liv, I need more. I don't feel like that was enough. Maybe there's an increase in other mental health symptoms, any changes in your functioning, academic, social, work, sleep, appetite, hygiene, or any thoughts of suicide, harm to self, or harm to others. Those are all indicators that it would be helpful to seek additional support. CAPS is a great resource for you. We have individual and group counseling available. I do encourage you to always check our website for any possible changes to our resources, hours, so on and so forth. Typically, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 until 4:30 p.m., and you can access us via phone by dialing 812-855-5711. After hours, select option 1, and you're able to talk with someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When we are physically open, we do have emergency walk-in appointments available. You just walk right up to the 4th floor, and you're able to see someone immediately. Otherwise, if it's not an emergency, you've never been seen before, you just give us a call, you schedule an appointment, or you can even schedule your first-time appointment online. This will be a 30-minute counseling session where you're able to get acclimated to our services, work with a counselor to start managing whatever concerns bring you in, and should you want any additional counseling beyond that, they will help you get you set up for that. but in the case of an emergency, you are able to dial this number or use our emergency walk-in appointments when we are physically open. We also, when we're physically on campus, have free drop-in appointments too. It's called Let's Talk, and I encourage you to utilize our website. We'll talk more about this later, but as a reminder, this is not for emergencies. So if this is an emergency, you will be best served at our emergency walk-in appointments or by calling us. We also offer sexual assault counseling and other free workshops. We have Monday Motivators, online workshops, which are just like these, both live and pre-recorded. So our Let's Talk program are our free drop-in programs. So these are brief consultations for any IU student about any area of concern. These Let's Talk counselors are actual counselors from CAPS. You'll be working with someone that has a master's or doctoral degree in counseling and is employed by CAPS. You're able to just go to our website, see where we're located, and then show right up. No appointment is needed. You can sit down, talk about whatever you need to talk about. And if you decide you want additional counseling from there, great. They can help you get set up, or you can continue utilizing that. Our Let's Keep Talking option is formal counseling that is targeted at our traditionally underserved students. So these are located in all of our cultural centers around campus. And you're able to view our website to understand if there are any changes to this, what our hours are for the Let's Talk Now, and our additional locations for Let's Keep Talking. But again, our website is the best place to go to navigate any possible changes. And you can call CAPS to schedule an appointment at one of the cultural centers around campus. But again, no appointment is needed for the brief consultations. We also have our SACS, our Sexual Assault Crisis Services through CAPS as well. This is free counseling services available for anyone who has ever experienced an assault. So this is included but not limited to any of those which are listed here. Note that this is an extension from CAPS, so this is staffed by our counselors who are trauma-informed, and they specialize in working with those who have experienced anything related to sexual violence or assault. Services include individual and group counseling, support groups, psychiatry care, information and assistance with medical, judicial, or legal issues. So they are very, very well equipped to help you in whatever capacity you need. And they also have after-hours crisis lines too by calling 812-855-8900. Please note that this phone number is different than the CAPS after-hours crisis line. And please note that these services are available for all genders and all identities. Last but not least, you can always contact the Center for Human Growth. This is not affiliated with CAPS, but it is another counseling resource on our campus. You can call their number, view their website, know that they do have evening hours. It's very affordable, and they offer both couples and individual counseling. That is all that I have for today's presentation. If you feel like you need something more or have additional questions, you can contact us at 812-855-5711.